Welcome to this exercise on the industry cost curve. Here we have information for 5 suppliers, and for each of the 5 suppliers we have the costs or the prices they charge and the capacity they could supply to the market. In addition to this information, we also know that total market demand amounts to 7,500 units. Then we have 2 scenarios to consider. First, the market price will be at 450 euros, and second, the market price results as the highest cost of the companies active in the market. Our task then, determine the situation in the market and calculate the total profit of all companies active in the market. Well, first off, we have to determine thus which suppliers will actually become active in the market and how much do they supply to the market. For this, I'm going to take the table I had before, but I'm going to reorder this by arranging suppliers in a way that the costs are increasing. So here I just have to pull supplier E to the middle of the table because they have slightly lower costs or prices than supplier C and D. Still, I have for each of the suppliers the capacity they could offer to the market. So I'm going to add something here called the accumulated capacity, meaning I'm working through my table from top to bottom, and I'm going to add up the respective capacities. So here I'm starting added up to this point is just the 1000. Here added up to this point is 3000. Here I have to add up these 3 values, giving me 7000. Here it's those 4, and here all of them. Well, that's one way to go, but I can also make this a bit easier if I just take the accumulated capacity from the supplier before and add the one from the current one. So those two together give this. 3000 plus 4000 gives 7000, and so forth. In either case, that's already all the information I need to generate the respective graphic, which I then can use for my analysis, which will look like this. So here I have on the x-axis the accumulated capacity, and I start at 0, and then I'm going to put 1000, 3000, 7000, 14,000, and 22,000. On the y-axis, I'm going to put the costs. So here I have 340, 350, 400, 410, and 450. So that's how I get those blocks describing the situation of each of the suppliers active in the market. In addition to this, I'm going to put a line here demarking the total market demand. And finally, I have another line, the horizontal one, which describes the market price as given in part A of the task, which was at 450. And well, what am I going to do now? Well, first, the market demand determines how many of my participants, of my suppliers, do I actually need to satisfy this market demand. And here I see, well, the first 3 and part of the 4th is what I need to satisfy market demand, and satisfy it in a way that it leads to the least costs. That's why I arranged them with increasing costs. So this guy here in the back, the D, does not become active in the market because he's first off too expensive to be considered, and we do not need the quantity he would supply to the market because the first 4 already suffice. In addition, we have the information via the market price, so we can calculate what more or less the profit margin or the profit for each of the companies is, because it's the difference between market price and costs which they actually face. So then here this is the per unit cost, and if I consider this whole rectangle, this gives me the profit for A. Respectively, the profit for B would be this rectangle, for E this rectangle, and for C, well, he doesn't supply all of it, he just supplies the small part, but for him it would be this part. Well, so far so good, so we already determined D is not active in the market, but if I want to calculate the profits, it's actually not this much of a problem doing this for A, B, and E. But for C, I first need to know how much he will actually supply to the market. But that's much easier done because we know market demand is at 7,500. We know A, B, and E already supply 7,000. That's where those accumulated capacities come in hand. So here we are at 7,000, here we are at 7,500, so C supplies 500 units. The other ones all supply the capacity, first three, D supplies nothing. So if I calculate the profit in this first scenario, I will have for the first one, market price 550 minus cost of 340. Times the capacity he supplies. For the second one, market price minus his costs times capacity he supplies. For the part E, the third one, still, who uses whole capacity of 4,000, he has a profit margin of, per unit of 450 minus 400. And then we get the last one active, the C. As we said, he only supplies 500, so we multiply the 500 with 450 minus 410, giving us his contribution to overall profits. So we get a total profit in this first situation of 530,000. That's situation A. In situation B, we wanted the price to be determined via the market. That's actually quite easy as well, because in this situation, the last party active in the market would determine the price. The last party active in the market is C, so market price will be 410. So we could add one line here, for example, and this white area below that line would then be the profit in B. So comparing this with A, the only thing we have to do here is replace the previously set market price of 450 with this now newly determined market price of 410. Adjust this in the calculation will give us a slightly smaller overall profit of just 230,000. Well, that's then about it for this exercise. So we did both parts and illustrated this graphically here as well. Bringing us to the end, so that I can just say goodbye and see you next time.